Welcome everyone to Unscripted Coding. Today, OpenAI announced a bunch of new features for developers. That's you and me. In this 19-minute video on X. I will fully admit I wasn't gonna watch through these because generally they don't tell me a whole lot. And I thought we could together look at the documentation and figure out what's going on. Now, we don't have to go into documentation just yet. The post does highlight 5 features for us. The first 3 look like new tools. Web search, file search, computer use. These sound like things that Google and Anthropic have had with their APIs. Largely searching the web, searching files on your computer, and finally computer use is the cool one where you could send a screenshot for the LLM. It responds which coordinates to click with the mouse or what to type in, and it will very slowly, for example, sign up for X if I tell it to by clicking this, seeing what's next, then the next, then so on. The 2 that I find more interesting, and you could see from the timestamps that they spent a whole 6 minutes or so on responses and another 9 minutes on agents. Those are the 2 big ones that I want to dive into deeper. Now, I guess the first question is, let's dive into responses first. And the first question there is, what is it? Well, so far, most of us have used OpenAI as an API with chat completions. We send part of a conversation or a whole conversation, and it predicts the next piece. So, for example, the AI would say something, I would say something, it would say something. We keep this all logged, and then I send it all together, and it predicts the next phrase. That's really where chat completion comes in. All the endpoints there are to basically manage this conversation. Responses seems to be advancing this, giving it the use of tools, giving it more features, and probably cleaning up the API a little. Now, what this comparison doesn't talk about is that OpenAI also had another similar API endpoint called Assistance. And this never picked up. Even I barely used it because it was hard to use. It didn't make much sense. Basically, you were creating threads and it somehow, you have to manage it even though OpenAI kind of manages it. It was difficult, and I never really saw the benefit over chat completions other than tool use, which is huge. I think Responses API is a, pun intended, response to this. It looks like it packs some of the features, most of the features of Assistance, but makes it way, way, way easier. So, what does that mean? Well, in this comparison, it sounds like you could do a lot on chat completions. Text generation, audio, vision, structured outputs, function calling, and actually web search is surprising to me here. But the first 5 of these are all really just carrying the conversation. Where Responses is adding is web search, file search, computer use, and probably additional tools in the future that require different styles of inputs and outputs. They clarify that chat completion is going to stay along, of course, because so many apps are built on top of it, they can't possibly get rid of it. But let's just take a look here. Now, I copied this code into VS Code already, and we're just going to run it to show you that it can. It can carry a basic conversation. So let's just run it, and it's going to take a second, I'm sure, and hopefully it spits a 1-sentence story back out to us. Now, very good. 1 sentence response about a unicorn. Yes. So that's basic. We could have done this not with responses, but with chat completion. Instead, the benefit here is it looks like we're going to be able to input a whole bunch of different things. So what I want to look for is this tools. And luckily we can do this. Tools, and over here we have the type and input. So I'm going to copy this again and just find my screen here and paste. So we're going to get a response. We're going to print out the output. What's a positive news story from today? That's a good one. And I'll tell you very quickly if it's something that happened today. Hopefully I'll know it. And we're just watching down here for the response. And March 12th, 2025. Technically it's the 11th, but depending on your time zone, could be March 12th. Oshkosh Chamber of Commerce. I have no clue where that is, but this looks like a... Okay. I'll accept that as true for now. Or you know what? I can copy this, come back here, and see if this is a... Yeah! This is a legitimate... February 24th. Is there a March 12th day in here? Okay, so not great, but it is a real article. It is a real response. It is relatively recent. So I'm not going to fail it just yet. The other one I wanted to bring up is file search. So I think we're going to have to open a new tab here. But you can see that we can store vector IDs and maxnum results. Largely that means that we're going to store our information with OpenAI. And this is something I haven't seen yet, but how it worked in Assistance API is you can upload a bunch of files, they persist within OpenAI, and you're just referencing, I think, an ID number of all your batch files together. I suspect this is the same in responses here. So what we can do is we can create certain things. So what is deep research by OpenAI? We have a file search, and no, that's not quite right. Here we go. Create a vector store and upload a file. So we can create a file, bunch of different things, and you can see the client is still OpenAI, files create, purpose assistant. So this is exactly the same process as before. And what happens is you can get a result at the very end. Now, I'm not going to go through this right now, but within OpenAI's playground, you can open up an assistant. You can create it within a web interface and upload files to it. But the big problem is there should be file size limitations. You can't just upload, say, your entire knowledge base from your business, you know, millions of files, millions of customer records, whatever. So here it looks like, well, this is quite generous. This is quite a bit bigger than I remembered it. Total size of 100 gigs for all files. Total of 10,000 individual files, and each file can be a max of 512. That's kind of interesting. Oh, I suppose. Okay, here's where I'm going with this. There's 512 megabytes, so let's say half a gig, 10K files. At max, you can have 5K 5K gigs? Okay, never mind. Mind playing tricks here. So 10,000 files, each at half a gig, 5,000 gigs. Okay, yeah, that's okay. Doubting myself, it is starting to get late at night. So this is possible. You're very likely to be able to store some significant information in here. So their vector store has gotten much better, which means that they're storing all this data and they're presumably fetching it very effectively. It's going to be helpful to see how this works, but again, I don't have a vector store ready to go. As long as I understand what's going on, this is helpful for me. This is way easier than assistance. You're just going to upload it from Playground, and then you're going to get the ID, place it here, and now you can just call it as a tool. Very simple. Function, don't really care. That's just typical calling a function. We've seen that in the past. I am just curious what this. I see reasoning. You can adjust how much time the O3, O1, the O series of models will spend. So that's helpful as well. I think this exists in chat as well. Okay, so we have gotten a good sense of what's happening with responses here. Actually, let's take a quick look. The response looks just like before. Delete a model response. Let's input items. Okay. Okay. So when I was doing prep work for this before, the list of items was somewhere else, so it's handy to have here as well. I think what's going to be really useful for me is this web search one. So you know what? Let's try that one more time because I think this is the biggest one I am going to use. And I'm just going to say, what is the Fowler case for AI IP ownership? And, this might be something in its knowledge base now, but I suspect it will have to search the internet to respond to what it is. This is a really important and interesting case if you are looking at can you own things that AI produces. And here, that looks like a pretty good response, but there is no link like before. So who knows if it fetched off the internet, but this will be one to play around with. The next one I wanted to talk through is the Agents SDK. This is one where I really do think we're just going to talk through rather than play with code because the use of it is probably quite limited. This is very early. But the idea is almost like LangChain, in which you want to use and take advantage of different models' capabilities. If you look here, OpenAI has summarized it very quickly. You want to use the 4.0 mini model for something low latency. If you need responses very quickly, so say you're responding to a user in real time or generating a conversation, say an audio conversation, you need something that runs very quickly, low latency. Responses will be dumber because it is low latency. Now, if you scale it all the way to the top, O1 and O3 mini are not fast models because they have that thinking mechanism. So it makes sense that they're best for long-term planning, hard tasks, and reasoning. What I think is useful to understand about this Agents SDK is that once you start building this out, you can create a number of different agents. And each of these agents will have their own persona. They could pretend to do different things. They can be given different tasks, but they can be different models, different running different tools. And the idea is having multiple of these agents interacting with one another is going to be helpful in achieving an objective. And I'm being very vague here. I'm just gonna install it on the back and see if we can run something. Because not a whole lot of people are using agents effectively. We're still not in that area where a lot of people are thinking about how to use agents. But if I think about my classic example of a very dumb, obvious way to use it, is to give AIs different personas and have a conversation, watch them converse with each other to get to a end result. And one example I have of this in real life, of course, is I am in meetings all the time with people of different backgrounds, different professions. And so if we have, say, a business objective, I might bring a legal opinion and someone else has a perspective as a finance or accounting background. Somebody has a marketing PR background, and say we're dealing with a big PR disaster. Finance will be going, how cheap can we make this? I will be trying to cover all sorts of legal liabilities, and the PR person's talking about how to spin this properly. And so the final draft of a document shouldn't be written by any one of us. Now, if you ask an AI to do that, you might be able to have it kind of juggle the three, but it's it's way more interesting to watch multiple agents kind of build out their thinking process, watch them duke it out and argue with one another until they actually produce a document. Now, that's just one way. Another way is LangChain has been doing, I don't think they call it agents. I don't think LangChain calls them agents, but you can have multi-step pieces. So, for example, we go back to which models are good here. Maybe we use O1 and O3 to plan the task, and then we need the tools from 4.5, but we want to do a series of checks. So once O1 and O3 plan out the plan of attack, maybe 4.0 mini can look at a whole lot of documents very, very quickly just to pick out the date from each one. And then finally you have 4.5 code up a chart, a interactive chart to display the information you found from pulling out all the dates. I'm just making this up as you go. So certainly the Agents SDK is going to allow you to choose models, tools, knowledge separately. But what's interesting as well is that you could also, they are thinking about how do you build applications, and guardrails is something that really I have not looked into or thought about at all. And so they're really trying to build out something where we could create the whole chain very effectively. Since I have installed this, let's try and do this hello world example here. I think we're going to need to pass in an API key here. And I will just comment this out. And let's, fingers crossed, see if this works. And maybe not. API key. Don't want to mess with my environment variables just yet, so I think we're going to leave it at that. These are all interesting. None of these are very complete. So just a few days ago, there was a Chinese AI launch called Manus AI and had a lot of these agentic functions. So I feel like OpenAI pushed these out quite quickly. The only one foreseeable that I would be using quite quickly are web search and file search. I might be using the responses API just because file search is required, but I'm glad to see that chat completions has a web search, so I don't have to migrate over just yet. This is the big one for me, web search. We don't I need to use it all the time, and I don't have great options. There's Perplexity Sonar. There are tools like Gemini's grounding, and more is better. Just going to see how all of these perform. Okay, I'm just going to end it here. I've been rambling for long enough, and thanks for watching. Bye.